Hi, my name is Dennis Labriola, and I'm chairman of the American Martyrs Stewardship Commission. Over the next 3 LinC sessions, we're going to be exploring stewardship in our lives, in the parish, and in the entire church. Since we have 3 sessions in 3 months, in between the sessions we'll be sending out reflections or readings just to keep things going. Now, a little bit about the history of stewardship. And I only bring this up, this is the boring part, I only bring this up just so you realize we're not a bunch of wild-eyed zealots trying to push a concept on us. But stewardship is a biblical concept. It's rooted in the Bible. It's the way Jesus lived. It's the way he expects us to live. As God-man man, he did not put himself above us, but acted more like a servant, helping those in need. There are several stories and parables about stewards in the Bible. The most familiar one is the one in Matthew's Gospel, the parable of the talents. The impetus for modern-day stewardship began almost 30 years ago when the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops formed a committee to look into how they were going to secure the resources to continue Christ's work on earth. Now, the initial focus of their work was on resources, and that means funding. But as they got into it, they realized it was far deeper than that. Stewardship was a way of life. It was the way we were expected to live. We weren't asking for money, we're asking to share ourselves. After 4 years, the result of their effort was the pastoral letter on stewardship. Fast forward about 20 years, and now the LA Archdiocese encouraged parishes to set up an organization which included a number of commissions. Our parish agreed with that, and the commissions were set up, stewardship being one of them. Now, usually when we get to this point of any discussion about stewardship, the question is, so what is stewardship? Well, let's back up a little bit. Let's ask, what or who is a steward? A steward is a person who takes care of owners' assets and business while they're away. They are responsible for increasing the assets, taking care of the assets, and even helping others with those assets. As I said earlier, we all know about the parable of the talents in Matthew's Gospel. Owner was leaving on a trip. He called his stewards. He entrusted them with each a part of his wealth. Now, living as a steward, they were said to have a stewardship. When the owner returned, he asked them for an accounting of what they had done. 2 of the stewards had increased their talents, and he praised them for it. The third, unfortunately, buried his talent because he was worried he would lose it. Well, it didn't turn out very well for that third steward. Now, here's the point. Everyone in the church is a disciple of Christ and a steward of his work on earth. Since God is no longer on earth, he has given us gifts to be used and benefits to be used for our benefit and for the good of the community. God expects that when, at the end of time, we account for our life, that we will have multiplied those talents, just as in the parable of the steward. This brings us to the core of stewardship, and that core is that everything we have comes from God. We don't own it, it's on loan to us. Now, that's easy to say, but very hard to embrace. I'm sure that most of us think that we got where we were through our own hard work and diligence, and that could be part of it. But a successful musician would not be a success without the musical talent that God gave him. A successful architect would not be a success without the creativity and analytical skills that God gave her. Now, for a moment, to extend this concept just a little bit further, I'd like you to imagine that you're an orphan. Totally no means of support. A generous person comes along, gives you the basics of life. Then when you're older, pays for your college and helps you find a career, and you become a successful adult. Would you be grateful, and how would you show it? Well, I'm sure you would be grateful. Everybody would have to be grateful for such a patron. But how do you show it? The way to show it best is to help someone else with what you've acquired and what you learned. Now, at the beginning, I said a generous person. In our lives, that generous person is God, who has given us everything that we have. So what does God expect from us? I think the answer is very nicely described in Matthew. Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You will love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we love God through worship and prayer, particularly prayers of praise and gratitude. We love our neighbor by using our gifts in service to them. So the bottom line comes down to we love and please the Lord by living a stewardship way of life. In the next session, we'll talk about gratitude and its relationship to stewardship way of life. And as I said, between the sessions, we'll be sending out reflections and readings to help us move along. But now it's time for discussion. So please engage with the host and the other members in your group. Thank you, and God bless.